welcome one and all to our Lunch and Learn. You may have seen just something pop up on your screen to say that the session is recorded. Bit of an intro, myself, for those that don't know me, Catherine Billing, Chief Officer of Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service, and also the EDI lead for the National Fire Chiefs Council. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn, which today is going to be on the LGBTQ network, and we are very lucky indeed to have Jack and Maria with us today. They're going to take you through the session. Just a couple little bits. It's kind of an open forum today, but people will be talking about their personal experiences, and we certainly find that that's really what brings these sessions to life. So please, there'll be a PowerPoint, but please, if you'd like to ask any questions at all or share your experiences at all, then the kind of the title is the old Lunch and Learn, and the best way sometimes to learn is by people's personal experiences, and as we said, bringing some of the practical things we do to life for us all in fire and rescue services. So as I said, we've got Jack and Maria with us today, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce them, and they are going to take us through the session. Jack and Maria, over to you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, as Catherine said, today's session is about LGBTQ plus inclusion and the new national network that we've established. My name is Jack Semple. I'm a watch commander for Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, and with me I've got Maria, who is around somewhere.
I'm here, Jack.
There we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria. I'm Station Officer at London Fire Brigade.
Okay, so what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover quite a few topics around LGBTQ plus inclusion. They're going to include bits about visibility and coming out, and then some of the threats to those things that still exist in our society and in our workplaces today. So we're going to be talking about some stereotyping and some microaggressions and things like that. So please do feel free to drop out if you need that time to just take a breath, if whatever we're talking about is getting upsetting to you or it affects you in any way. Then we're going to talk about why it's important that we address those things in our workplaces, and we're going to talk about allyship and how that can really assist in that process. And then we're going to talk about the new network that we've established, what it is, how and why it happened, and what it can offer all of you as fire and rescue services around the country, and as other organisations as well, if you want to tap into that experience and knowledge that we're putting together. Okay, so like I said, today's session is about LGBTQ plus inclusion, and the first element of that is just a little understanding of pride. So I'm going to hand over to Maria to talk us through why pride is still so important.
Thanks everyone. So for us, when we talk about pride, it's especially when it comes to sort of workplace environment, we want to sort of hit home that pride isn't just one day of the year that everyone can celebrate. It's something that we want our workplaces and colleagues to build on. We want to invite people there that perhaps haven't been before, and it's a great education piece for a lot of fire and rescue services to come along, meet and greet their own colleagues that are from the community, but also have a bit of learning. But also it's really the understanding that it's a reminder around the phobia that's in society and in our workplaces as well, and how they can be part of the journey to eradicate that, or at least make it a safe space. And also with Pride, we've got LGBT plus History Month that we want to build on as well. So with us, it's, I suppose, with the network as well, we want to try and ensure that not only are we visible in Prides, but actually it means something for the workplace to take back. So what are you going to be doing about it after that day and that celebration? Because it is a great day for some, and it's what we do after that, and the build, and what communities can we build on top of this. So yeah, for us, I suppose, whilst it's integral to quite a lot of the work that networks do, and a focus is on that part of the year, we want to make sure that we expand that. And as we know, prides go throughout most of the year. I think it's May to sort of September time now. So it has built in the community quite massively. But what we want to try and avoid is it becoming that commercial that actually it takes away from the community and the networks, what we're there for. And I know from my point of view within London, it's a huge celebration that, you know, at least we get, you know, around about 100 staff from London Fire Brigade to march within the parade. But it's a reminder that we are here, and there is still a struggle as well. And to have, you know, managers, colleagues, friends, people that we work with every day to come along and see and speak to us about that, you know, it means a lot for us to be able to do that. But what it does do, it can inspire different teams as well to take away the impact that having a safe workplace can have on people, and actually how they produce themselves at work. So yeah, that I think that for us is fundamentally why Pride is very important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about visibility as well, and why it's important. I suppose for some, it's ensuring that you are the role model, but you're being a positive role model as well. And I know that word gets bandied about a lot, you know, what is a role model? But as Jack has put on there, who truly believes that they can be what they can see? So just because myself, I can wear my lanyard doesn't mean that everybody else can, because they might not feel the space to. And I think that's the takeaway for me for today is, you know, in your workplaces, is it that everyone is comfortable with being that visible? Have you got visible people? Have you got people that, you know, are out and are allies or part of the network, where they can create a space for other people to have that speak? You know, because actually, you know, visibility comes in different forms. It could be a little badge, it could be that someone's the head of the network, you know, it's a various range of things. You may be an ally because you are a parent of someone within the community. You know, it doesn't mean you know everything, but at least someone can come up and have a chat with you, and know what it means to be LGBTQ+ in the fire service. But we, as a network, we need to ensure that those fire and rescue services are safe to be visible as well, especially with, you know, a lot of the culture that's been going around at the moment, or, you know, fire and rescue services are going through a massive sort of look at each other and a change. And the purpose is to make sure that those that are visible are feeling safe and aren't getting attacked at work. It's also about educating our peers, you know, especially from my own experience here in London. I walk around with my lanyard, and it opens a conversation with different people around what does that mean, what does that letter mean, and it's from a genuine place, and I think that's where we can take our colleagues on a journey with us, and it's also about ensuring that we've got the inclusive leadership as well, and being able to challenge that, and I would hope that that's what networks, our FRS networks, will be doing. And, you know, having the overarching national network hopefully will provide some support for that. But there's also a fundamental understanding that not everyone wants to be visible as well, and that's okay, you know, and also tokenism. So just because you have one person who's happy to be visible doesn't mean that that fire and rescue service, you can then rely on them to do everything, to educate people. Sometimes it needs other people, but that one person being visible can also ensure that other people feel comfortable in doing it. If that one person who is visible is happy at work, is happy to speak about themselves, and encourage others, then that's only going to be good for the network and for each other when you're at work. And it's also good as well because, especially for me here, I'm part of a culture change team, and you know, you've got people coming from different teams to ask me questions and advice, especially around policy and guidance. So language within policy and guidance, which, you know, I personally think is where this starts. If you've got your language in your policies correct and inclusive, and it's visible there that someone's actually took time to look at it, you're going to have more staff engaged in what you're trying to do. And with training as well. So your CBT packages, which I'm sure some people take them to their equality support groups, but that's fundamentally where you're going to get your education and training around how can we make it more inclusive so that people are aware that the LGBTQ plus community and the network is in our fire service. Yeah, and really, like I said, it's a ripple effect when you've got one person being that visible person, because then, you know, what they've ultimately done, as Jack has alluded to here, is they've actually come out. And coming out isn't just once every, you know, once in a lifetime. It is a constant thing for people within the community. So it is, how many times do you have to do this, and who's doing it for you? So it is an ongoing thing. And some people really don't mind that. Some people, it can be quite triggering. For some, they don't actually want to come out. And this is the question we have to ask our fire and rescue services is it a personal choice that they don't want to come out? Or is it that my workplace isn't a safe space for me to come out? And they're the questions that we will be pushing for answers for, because it's absolutely a personal choice. There are also assumptions that are made as well when you join a fire and rescue service or join a new team. Just because I wear a lanyard doesn't mean that I am from the community. It might mean that I'm an ally or a friend or a colleague of someone. And it's those assumptions that can be made that are silent, that can prevent people from, one, coming out, or two, being an ally. And I suppose the journey for a lot of people, especially around making it safe for people to be themselves in a fire and rescue service, especially for our non-binary and trans colleagues, in the environment that we're in at the moment, is particularly poignant. You know, and we have to question ourselves within our community and in the fire and rescue service about what we're going to do to ensure that when actually people do have that make that brave step, or, you know, it say to themselves, say to the colleagues and their team, this is who I am. What facilities have we got for that then? Are we going to go into a mad panic? Or are we going to be like, oh, okay, brilliant, we've got someone, and we'll leave the Maria, who's out and gay and proud, to leave her to do what she needs to do, join the network. Do we understand what that means? Do we understand what being non-binary means? Do we understand what it means to be trans? Do we understand what transitioning is? The language here is really important as a fire and rescue service. And part of what we want to be doing as a network is ensuring that you've got somewhere to go for advice and education, but you've also got the element of education around that for understanding it, and you can have the confidence to be able to deal with anyone within your team that has made that step to come out. I know for me within the fire and rescue service, I don't think I've actually had to come out to a team to say, oh, hello, I'm Maria, I'm gay. When I first started my career as an operational firefighter, it was already done for me. I got to the watch and someone had already done it for me. So I got the guys from the watch come up to me, already tell me and say, oh, we know you like women, you're one of us. And I'm like, what do you mean one of us? Well, you're one of the blokes, aren't you? No, not really. No, I don't think so. You know, and it really does put you on a back foot in then, because you even though they know who you are and you haven't had to have that conversation, you know they've been talking about you in the background, and it really it doesn't make for a good workspace, I suppose. That's sort of my coming out story in a way. Don't know if Jack wants to add to any of that.
Yeah, well, Maria's moved us perfectly on to the next section, which is about stereotyping and microaggressions. So that seemingly innocuous act of telling your future crew that they're getting a new recruit, and oh, by the way, that recruit's gay. It might seem like you're doing them a favor, but actually all you've done is taken away the power of being able to come out yourself to that for that individual. It's up to the individual to decide when and how they come out and to whom. So that's a really powerful thing, which is still a problem that we have in the workplace, regardless of whether that's the fire service or anywhere else. It's those assumptions that people are making that, oh, you know, Jack's been out at the training centre, so it must be okay for me to tell someone. Well, actually, it's up to me. I don't know how those people are going to react to that knowledge. I don't know how I'm going to feel about the fact that I'm now thinking, like Maria just said, that they've been talking about me for the last 2-3 weeks, and what have they been saying? Are they happy to have a gay person on their watch? And from my personal experience, I was lucky that I say lucky. I hid my sexuality when I first joined the brigade. I didn't come out. I didn't want to come out. It was 15 years ago, to be 100% fair to the fire service, and we've moved on since that point. However, I spent the first year hiding my true self because that's where I felt safe, and I spent that year deliberately avoiding talking about my other half in terms of, like, I would talk about my partner rather than my boyfriend, or I'd talk about people I was attracted to in a very gender neutral way, and my colleagues never noticed. And actually, I was outed again on. It was partly my fault. I'm not going to claim entire responsibility for it, but we were on a watch night out, and I ended up being pushed towards groups of girls because the guys thought that was an appropriate thing to do at the time. And obviously, I'd have a nice chat and come back to the group, and one of them just said, "What's wrong with you? Are you gay or something?" And being a little bit tipsy at the time, my immediate response was, "Well, actually, yeah, I am. What of it?" And to their credit, to this day, they just started throwing me into groups of lads instead, which was both funny and awkward at the same time. So yeah, your coming out is a very personal thing, and people's assumptions about you is where we're trying to educate people. We're not all the same. No one is. Everyone is different. Everyone is different, regardless of whether you identify as straight and cisgender or LGBTQ+. You will have your own nuances, and actually, it's about us recognizing that we need to treat every individual as that individual. Recognize the individuality of that person, their individual needs, their wants, their desires, and create an environment where they can thrive as an individual, and also become part of that team that we want to foster. So looking at those little microaggressions that we always hear, especially with the current culture review that's come out of London, and various other brigades are going through the same process, is looking at the language that we use on watches and in workplaces, and recognizing that actually it's not just inappropriate to be driving down the street talking about which women are attractive and which women aren't attractive. It's also triggering fear in your LGBTQ+ colleagues who are sat in the back thinking, "Oh, I need to go along with this conversation because otherwise my crew are going to find out that I'm gay, and how are they going to react to that? If they're willing to talk about these people that they don't know in that way, how are they going to react to me coming out?" It's microaggressions, and it's looking at our language. And Maria mentioned the trans community, and at the moment that's one of the biggest battlegrounds for the LGBTQ+ rights movement at the moment, is getting that basic understanding of the fact that trans rights are human rights, and helping us to move forward to a place where actually trans people, you don't have to come out as trans. Why should anybody have to come out, really? Straight people don't come out, so why should I have to come out all the time? But looking at the language that we use in terms of misgendering people, trans people are incredibly kind in the way that they go about their gender identity and the way that they want you to identify them. They'll tell you how they want you to identify them, and they recognise that it's potentially a bit of an alien thing for you, because they might present as female, but their gender is actually male. So they'll tell you, and they'll ask you to use the pronouns he, him, and actually it costs us as individuals nothing to respect that desire of theirs to use those pronouns. And obviously the trans community recognise that it could be an alien thing for you, so they give you a bit of leeway. However, if you're constantly misgendering someone because you just can't be bothered to catch yourself or learn, then that's got to be on you. That can't be on them. And we can't turn around and say, well, they're just being awkward, because they're not. That's about part of who they are, and it's about making sure that they're comfortable in their working environment, in their environment in general. And there's an expression called dead naming, which is where a trans person may have adopted a new name. So, for instance, they might have been born and christened as Isabella, and then they've adopted a new name of Jake, for instance, because they transitioned, and people are still calling that person Isabella rather than Jake. Not necessarily on purpose, but quite often it is on purpose, because they don't necessarily understand the transition process, and they're unwilling to let go of that person's previous named identity. And that's quite a big microaggression in terms of the way that we treat that individual. There's another element of microaggression, which is one of my favorite ones, which is where people think they have the right to ask you any question at any time, regardless of how appropriate it is for the work environment. It's things like, oh, so what role do you take in the bedroom? And I know what they're getting at. They've assumed one way or the other, which is entirely inappropriate, and really those kind of conversations shouldn't be part of the work environment anyway. But again, it's another microaggression where people think they've got they chat about their own lives at home, so they think they've got the right to chat about your life at home as well, which isn't appropriate for the work environment, and it's something that we need to move forward from. And that's the type of thing where policies and procedures can do a lot of good for our staff, making it 100% clear that actually, yes, ask questions. I want you to ask questions about the LGBTQ+ community, but I want you to also recognise when you're meeting that mark. And I want to be able to tell you that actually I don't really want to talk about this anymore. And I want you to be able to, I want you to have to respect that, not just to be able to respect it, but to have to by policy, that actually at this point, I'm not comfortable anymore. You need to recognise that and move forwards. So I wanted to talk a little bit again about where a lot of these stereotypes and a lot of these assumptions come from. So as a society, all of our moral standards tend to be taken from religious backgrounds. So a lot of our laws are written from a religious point of view. And there's a lot of confliction, I think, in sections of the LGBTQ+ community. There's those who are incredibly anti-religious because of the way that religions tend, especially conservative religions, tend to treat the LGBTQ+ community. And then there are also those who are religious themselves. They've always been religious, and they've discovered their sexuality, and it's an incredibly conflicting set of emotions. As organisations, we need to be able to distance ourselves from those religious morals that are enforcing effectively negative stereotypes and those microaggressions within our organisations. And we need to be able to move ourselves away from those standards and look at how are we going to treat each other in a fair and equal way, and how do we write that into policy? Personally, I don't think it's majorly difficult, and the national network will be there to support any policymakers who are here in doing that and ensuring that our policies are fair and inclusive, and also meet the organisational objectives that we're trying to meet as well. So the next section was bringing your whole self to work, and how it makes an absolutely enormous difference, massive difference, if I can just forget the idea that I might be bullied or somebody might be thinking something different about me in the background. I came out years ago, thankfully, so I've had 14 years to get used to the idea of being gay within the fire and rescue service. So for me now, it's a massive weight off my shoulders. I work for quite a fairly small brigade anyway, so and everybody within Hertfordshire knows who I am. Everybody knows that I'm gay. It's quite an easy environment for me to work in that respect now, because I find I have to come out less and less to various different groups and teams and things, which makes work life so much easier. You perform better. You find that you have a better, more balanced moods while you're at work as well. It's much easier to feel part of the team, because I know I've worked with my team for a long time. They've all been really good. They asked questions, they were appropriate, and I was able to shut them up when they went too far, because again, I know those people and I've worked with them for quite a while now. It makes a massive mental health benefit. So the LGBTQ plus community is 4 times more likely to commit or attempt suicide than the straight cisgender community, precisely because of all the things we've just been talking about. So if we can remove those things from the work environment, it's one less pressure for LGBTQ plus people to feel whilst at work. And then another thing that helps with that mental health is access to support from your colleagues. So it might sound like a fairly straightforward thing, but actually if I'm having an argument with my husband at home, it's quite nice to be able to come to work and be able to chat to my colleagues about it. Because the reality is 90% of the arguments that I'm having with my husband at work, at home, are the same arguments that they're having with their wives at home. So we can all sit there and we can all have that little, back and forward and, moan up about your partners. And I feel included and part of that team and part of that conversation, which is a really, really good thing for us to have. And it moves me nicely on to the next bit, which is about allies and allyship, and actually how we can train and trust our allies to help our LGBTQ plus colleagues. A good ally definitely isn't silent. So to make a good ally, I think the first thing that needs to happen is they need to understand LGBTQ plus history. So in order to really understand what we need to do to push forwards, you need to see how far we've come. So coming from the Stonewall riots, which produced Pride, and understanding that Pride was and still is a riot. It's a riot of colour, it's a riot of noise and excitement, and it's also a protest. If you go to Pride, like Maria says, you can come away with an idea of what the current battlegrounds are and what work still needs to be done, as long as you're paying attention. If you go to Pride and just enjoy the party, then yeah, of course you're going to come back thinking, oh, that was fun. I didn't really learn anything, but it was fun. Whereas if you go and you talk to LGBTQ plus people who are parading, talk to the LGBTQ plus people who are in the streets and having a good time, and ask them how you can help, then that makes a massive difference. They'll feel included in the community, they'll feel represented by yourself as an ally, and you'll get an idea of where it is that we're still working for that equality and inclusion. The next thing is to talk openly and honestly. So all of our allies should be able to talk to us openly. Yeah, okay, you're going to have to watch your language, as you would with any colleague, and you will make mistakes, especially where it comes to I think where it comes to trans and various gender identities. They are very complicated, and I'm going to be entirely honest, even I don't understand 80% of them. However, I will have a conversation with the individual in front of me. How do you want me to address you? What are your pronouns? How do you identify as an individual? The most important thing is, if you get it wrong, just apologize, correct yourself, and try not to make the same mistakes again. So learn from that experience, and don't take it personally. No one can know everything or get it right all the time. But respect that individual's right to privacy and your boundaries as well. So if they are getting uncomfortable, recognize they're getting uncomfortable, and just thank them for taking the time to talk to you, and just let them know that you are there for them. Do your best to learn the language. So what does it actually mean? What is L? What is G? What is B? What is T? There's a whole alphabet out there, which is an amazing panoply of all these different people, all these different sexualities and genders and so on and so forth, that it's really good for an ally to have a basic understanding of what those things are. So if somebody says to you, oh, I'm pansexual, you don't have that awkward question of, oh, what does that mean? Or there's not the awkward joke of, oh, what, you like pots and pans? Because it's A, it's inappropriate, and B, it's something that as an ally, put that little bit of effort into finding out those things about the community that you are attempting to support. Learn what's acceptable and what isn't, and recognize that sometimes the LGBTQ plus community will appropriate languages that is offensive. And it's a little bit like the BAME community. They've appropriated that language back to themselves that was offensive. And the LGBTQ plus community does the same thing. We take that language that was once used as insult against us, and we own it, and it's our language now. So recognize why that's offensive, and recognize why you still can't use it. It's one of those where you might feel a bit uncomfortable with me calling myself X, Y, or Z, but recognize that that's because I'm taking ownership of that language, and I'm the chances are those words were used against me when I was younger to bully me. So I'm taking that language and I'm owning it, and I'm taking the power away from it by owning it. And then the next thing is to take a stand. So don't be silent. As it says there, a good ally is not silent. So be an active bystander. This is an entire other listen and learn session later on to active bystanding. But it's basically the idea that if you see something inappropriate or you see somebody being victimized or bullied, then it's being able to stand up and challenge that behavior, or being there to support that person who's being bullied or victimized in the best way possible, whether that's calling the police or just being a presence to sit next to that individual and say, look, are you okay? Do you want me to do anything? Do you need me to do anything? How can I help you? And don't just stand by and watch and then think to yourself as you leave that scenario, whether it's a train carriage or you walk past something in the street, and think to yourself, well, thank God that wasn't me. Thank God I don't have to do anything about that. Because actually, as a good ally, you should be doing something about that. You should be standing up and saying, this isn't right. You can't treat people like that. And stop supporting organizations that support hate. So we utilize charities in the fire and rescue service to fulfill functions that realistically we should be fulfilling ourselves. One specific example is fireground welfare and fireground feeding. So at the moment, quite a few brigades use the rapid relief team, which is Plymouth Brethren charity. And unfortunately, the Plymouth Brethren are arduously anti-LGBTQ plus. So I have no doubt whatsoever that they would still feed me if I walked up to them in their little tent and I had a rainbow patch on my fire kit. I have no doubt that they would feed me. However, I don't feel that they would enter into a conversation with myself about me or what it's like being in the fire service as me. I think that I've had conversations with them about what it's like being in the fire service and about what the incident's like when I've not been wearing a rainbow patch. It's not obvious that I'm LGBTQ plus, but I know that they're Plymouth Brethren, so I know that I have to hide that part of myself. And there is a fear that somebody will come up behind me and say, oh, I've just seen a guy out there, he's really attractive, you'd quite like him. Well, actually, that's immediately outing me to somebody who potentially isn't going to support me, potentially would actively not unsupport me, actively oppress me as an individual. So we need to stop supporting those organisations. It's not just the Plymouth Brethren. We need to look at every aspect of the way that we do business. So whether it's a supplier who's supplying kit for us, and actually 90% of their profits go to charities that support conversion therapy, for instance, or we need to find another supplier to give our money to and our support to. Things like that. So the next bit is about resources that are available to yourself. So I'll let Maria guide you through some of the resources that are available.
Thanks, Jack. And I suppose really on the back of the allies thing as well is, you know, especially as an inclusive leader, and we go through these culture changes that we are, especially with the Plymouth Brethren, Fireground Feeding, the rapid relief teams that are popping up. You know, if you are part of a network, it's about having those conversations with senior management and getting them to understand. Because fundamentally they may not know, and it is a conversation. And really linking that back to what Jack was saying earlier around religion, and the fear around, you know, if it's religious and anti-LGBTQ plus, we must keep them separate. Well, no, let's have that conversation. But there are certain organisations out there who aren't particularly kind to our community, and the best thing you can do as an ally and an active bystander is you know, stand by your LGBTQ plus colleagues. I know on some firegrounds I'm having some feedback from what personal feedback from people is that their watchers are refusing to go to get fireground feeding from certain organisations now, which is great. And what that does, it's a massive sort of show to the leaders on the fireground that that's not acceptable, and we can have those conversations, and it can be in policy, and you can write to them and say this is absolutely not on my fireground. And that's the active bystanders that we're asking for, and we're going to help you try and support that. So what we've done as well here is we've put a range of resources on the back of the slides here. But really, I mean, anyone can get these. These are the things that we use day in, day out if we wanted to Google, or, you know, wanted just a bit of information because we want to take it away and learn ourselves. The best resources that we have as fire and rescue services is our networks, is our union reps. They are all part of the community, and they will be able to educate you and point you in the right direction if you have that conversation with them. The best thing we can do as fire and rescue services as well, you know, is look for our local services. What local charities have we got out there, and invite them in to have a chat with them. So when you are doing the events such as Pride or History Month, you've already got the links, and they can help you. In fact, they might be able to come in and do a bit of training for you if you're a small brigade, you know, or they might be able to put you on the right path. And one thing that I wanted to sort of hit home as well, and Jack again mentioned it around mental health and health, and that is really important to the networks and to the community. And you will have local charities and local counselling, local therapies that are out there that you'd be able to support your staff in going to, because from personal experience as well, being through therapies in the past, you know, it's twice as hard if you've got someone who is from the cis or straight community, because you're now having to describe your personal life as an LGBTQ plus community member and also the problems that you're facing. Whereas if you had someone from the community who was a therapist or a counsellor, that barrier is broken down straight away. So it's something maybe that the organisations can take back from that.
So as Maria said, one of your best resources, it's the UK Fire Pride, which is the new UK-wide LGBTQ plus network. Why this network then? So why now, and how did it happen? So last year at the AFSA summer conference, which was held in Stevenage, which is in my neck of the woods, they had a session on LGBTQ plus issues, and they invited the chair of the Police National LGBTQ plus network to come and speak about the role of the Police's national network. He provided a challenge to us. Really, one of his first sentences was, "Why don't you have a national network?" And I was sat there and I thought, why don't we have a network? That's a very good question. And this came after a session from one of my own middle managers, who came out to an entire conference of delegates as bisexual. It was probably one of the bravest things I've seen at a conference in the entire time I've been in the service. His colleagues and his contemporaries didn't know. A few of them did, obviously in his close-knit team, and they were there to support him. But he gave his story of how he'd grown up and the attitudes towards the LGBT community that he'd grown up with, and then obviously the fear that came from those attitudes, and then joining the fire service and being put into a system where those fears were simply amplified. And then he gave some personal experiences, recent personal experiences of when he'd encountered homophobia in the workplace, all because they didn't realise that he was part of the LGBTQ plus community. They were quite happy to talk in that way with him, thinking, oh, well, you're straight, you're fine, don't worry about it. We can say whatever we like because nobody here is going to take offence. And that was a real wake-up call for me, that actually things have got to change. So then when Steve, who's the chair of the Police National Network, stood up and gave us that challenge, why haven't you got a national network? I kind of said to myself, right, I'm going to do something about this. So I gathered around everyone who had a rainbow lanyard on themselves at that conference and got details. Went up to my chief, Alex Woodman, and said, I'm doing it. I'm starting a network, and he immediately, to his credit, threw his support behind that. Since then, basically badgered every fire service in the country, sending them endless emails and not taking no for an answer. So we currently represent every single fire service in the United Kingdom. We also represent the NFCC and National Resilience, and we've got quite a few of us are FBU members as well. So I'm hoping to bring the FBU into this work as well. So we're really representative of the entire fire service ecosystem within the UK. So why do we need this? Why do we need this network? Well, as we've gone through the entire presentation today, it's that recognition that there are still things that need to be changed. And actually, who do we need to ask for advice? We need to ask our workforce for advice. So actually, let's get this network together of people who can be that resource for the fire and rescue service, help you write policies, help you write procedures, help you deal with just general advice on the LGBTQ plus community, where you can come and ask questions with the knowledge and understanding that you're going to be taken seriously, and that you're not going to offend us by asking these questions. We want you to ask us these questions. If you have an issue in your brigade and you want advice, come to us, ask us those questions. And then, so the network is going to offer that networking opportunities for LGBTQ plus colleagues across the country. It's going to offer educational resources, so things like leaflets and conferences and presentations and things like that we can offer to fire and rescue services to increase their knowledge and understanding of the community, and how best to serve the community that we work for, and how best to serve our employees and colleagues. And then we're also here as that resource to pick our brains, to provide that overarching umbrella for local networks, so that they can ask for support from us if they've got a local issue that they're trying to push forward, how best to push forward, and basically just increase our inclusive environment within the fire and rescue service. So that is the end of this presentation, and I'm hoping that Kath will have some questions for us that we will be able to answer.
Thank you very much indeed. Massive thank you, Jack and Maria. Whilst I'm opening we're opening up to questions, so get your thinking caps on. I'll just kind of put some comments that have come in on the chat, just around the power of your experiences, but also the coming out of your colleague, Jack. Many people saying, goodness me, absolutely amazing, and well, somebody said actually they were at the conference. So Joe was at the conference where they said it's the highlight of the conference for them. There's a bit of a question around the flag. Paul asked about the flag, and Sydney's kind of very helpfully put in a link to learning more about the flag. And And there's quite a lot of, does anybody know how to get hold of rainbow lanyards? And yes, I think you did touch on the fact that there are plans to share resources nationally as we start to develop them, for sure. Any questions for Jack or Maria? Or any kind of comments or thoughts from today's session?
I think if I can step in, Kath,
Yeah, please do.
as well, is to build on, you know, the reasons why for the network, really, and it's to ensure that we're in that space, we're in those conversations, because whilst ever you have local networks nationally, the picture was without the rainbow or without our colours, and you know, it shows when we're developing new packages, new language. You know, it changes. It's like a stone that just keeps rolling. And the national network there is now amongst the table with, especially with NFCC's backing, to ensure that, you know, this moves at a pace now, and that, you know, that we are all understanding each other, and that there is no fear to have that conversation with each other around education and what do you think about this, and do you think this is the right way we should do it? And I think that ultimately is really what fire and rescue services are going to gain from the national network, as they did with WFS and AFSA and things like that. I think that's really where we're going to see us stepping into the fore around assisting fire and rescue services in the future.
I think you're right, and the great thing that we do as fire and rescue services is share stuff, and we learn from each other. And I think this is exactly like you said, that Fire Pride can really step into that space and be that, not only supporting others but learning from each other, because that's kind of what we do really, really well. Tanya, I'd like to, you've got your hand up, please come in. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Tanya from North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and the LGBT network lead for the service. Firstly, just thank you for putting this on today. It was really, really interesting. I've written reams of paper of just ideas, and that's why I always think these sessions are really good, just for kind of sharing of ideas of what to do in your own service. So thank you for that. And then the second thing is just to offer a paper if people wanted to read it. So in North Yorkshire, we used to have a memorandum of understanding with the Rapid Relief team, and our collective networks, so the gender network, the LGBT network, the faith and spirituality, all of the networks got together and we wrote a paper and put it to management to suggest that that their values don't perhaps align with ours, and to stop, or suggest that could we stop using them, and that was passed, which was brilliant. So if anyone wanted a copy just to look at it, to maybe base it on, to maybe put that forward to their own fire services, then just let me know. And that's it, really. Thanks again.
No, thank you ever so much. That's really useful. I think not that chiefs have any power or anything like that, but equally, I've made it really clear in my service we would not be using them, just because I kind of heard on, again, just through my knowledge and understanding, that they certainly do not support people that identify as LGBT. And again, if you have any problems in your services, then I can see Mark on the call there as well. You know, collectively as chiefs, we talk a lot, and I would be more than happy to have any of those conversations to reinforce any kind of business cases that yourselves need to put forwards. But fingers crossed, the word on the street is getting around about their values not aligning to ours. Got another hand up. That is. See, now I've got a bit of is it Alex?
Hiya, yes, I'm Alex Daniels. I'm Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service. I'm one of the comms team, and I'm on the we have an LGBT employee voice group as well. I was just wondering if anybody sort of had any tips, because one thing we're encountering that's a bit of a struggle is getting members of the workforce to kind of engage with us as a group. It's almost as though, because they kind of feel like it doesn't apply to them, that they don't need to engage with it. I just wondered if that's something that other people have encountered, or if we just kind of need to up our game with, I don't know, creativity or trying to garner engagement or something like that.
No, thank you, and thanks for being very open. We have the same problem, but Jamie's popped their hand up. I don't know if that's in response to this particular question.
Hi there. Yeah, it was just to give you a bit of advice from what we've done from a North Wales Fire and Rescue Service point of view, sorry to the speakers, I don't know whether you wanted to answer the question, but I just
go for it.
wanted to give you a bit of an update of what we do. So we're not a very we have a very broad LGBTQ plus community with lots of little pockets. We don't have one staple city with a lot of gay bars, a lot of LGBTQ plus spaces, but we have lots of different pockets of communities. And as you can imagine, North Wales is full of vast mountains, and trying to get people together is kind of difficult. And so we basically, to get around that issue of staff not being involved, we basically invite the communities in. We have different stations, and those different pockets we'll go and visit, and we've got a great relationship with Pride Cymru and with networking with different groups. So because the question on everyone's, well, a lot of people's lips is probably, how do we do this? You know, how do we get it involved? And from my point of view, getting networking with other organizations and other services is a real big plus to helping you create sort of even if it's just an area with a lot of different services, a lot of different organizations, but you're getting a network together, and we've built such a strong link.
That's a really useful idea. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you ever so much. Really similar in Cornwall, funnily enough, because in that you've got those little rural isolated pockets. And no, thanks for sharing. That's really kind.
If I jump in as well, Catherine? No, just
yeah,
to
please do.
reinforce what Jamie was saying now, actually, about creating those links with the community. One thing that we tend to find is that brigades make links with the community for recruitment purposes, and then as soon as recruitment's done, yeah, we'll come back. Well, actually, what we need to do as Fire and Rescue Services is create those really strong links and stay with it forever. Make that link and make those networks, and then really encourage the growth of those networks and those links, and keep in with those communities. And you'll find that actually your recruitment in this area is much better, because members of the community won't be thinking, oh well, they're only interested in us when they want us to come and work for them, and you know, provide that almost like a tick box exercise is the way that we're finding that the communities are thinking of those interactions, rather than as Jamie says, making those really strong network links that provide for you all year round. So that's a really good example, Jamie. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We've got there's some bits going on in the chat. A couple of unknown users coming in about equality data. How effective are your diversity monitoring forms for capturing data? I know ours aren't very good at all. Marie, did you want to come in?
Yeah, sure. I suppose it's especially with data collection. We spoke about it throughout the whole session. If people aren't coming to work and feel safe, if people aren't comfortable with being themselves, they're not going to answer the questions correctly. It's as simple as that. And that's where you get the fundamental basis of data collection. It's about, like everyone said here, about the engagement, about getting your networks visible, and providing a safe space so that when people are answering these questions, they have the trust and the confidence in the Fire and Rescue Service collecting that data. And that comes from your networks. If the networks are confident, they'll let everybody know and they'll start answering the questions. Your data collection is going to be a lot sort of fresher then. In terms of the monitoring forms, that's what the network's here for. You know, come and approach us. Let us see your forms, and we'll be able to give you some advice on how better to do it, or how the language fits with us, because you know, it's like everything, it does change and we do have to keep on top of it, but that's what we're here for.
I'll jump in as well. It's
absolutely,
it's always going to be an issue, those types of diversity and monitoring forms, because I almost like to think of us as almost like a hidden community. Because realistically, I don't have to come out if I don't want to, and nobody would guess that I'm LGBTQ+, but unless they happen to come around to my house and see all the pictures and stuff in my house. So we are reliant on creating that environment where people want to be honest about their sexuality. So you can have the best diversity monitoring form ever in the history of mankind with the perfect wording and all the rest of it, but you're still relying on your employees to engage with that and to tick the boxes that actually apply to themselves on those forms. So, and the only way that we're going to do that is by creating that environment where people want to be honest and open about who they are and what their sexuality is, and they need to feel comfortable in order to do that.
No, thank you. And Maggie's put in the chat around some of the work that they've done around all new employees are aware of like networks and kind of they've got contact advisors or on hand to discuss anything around harassment, bullying, inappropriate behaviours. And so again, it is about how do you create that environment where people feel safe to kind of be themselves, but also disclose that information. That, you know, so we've got that quality data. We are approaching the hour, everybody, which that has absolutely flown by. A massive thank you to Jack and Maria for coming today and updating us on their own experiences, but also most importantly, Fire Pride. Please, 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 next year, Fire Pride is going to be absolutely well out there, doing some great things. I think we're looking to pop together a bit of a conference, a bit of a meet and greet, a bit of a get together. So please, please, please support that. Keep your eyes and ears out and start to use the network. Start to support us to create this network and to snowball it and improve what we do for all of our people across our fire and rescue services. So thank you, Jack and Maria. Just a quick update. This is the final Lunch and Learn of the year. So a big thank you to Sunny, who's been organising them throughout the course of the year. At this point, I am going to say it's the final Lunch and Learn, but they're coming back with a new name next year. By popular opinion, it's going to be Listen and Learn. Although I do hope that, again, it's not just listening. I hope that everybody will kind of tap some bits in and participate as well. So we'll look forward to the next 2024, 9th of January, where we've got intersectionality as our Listen and Learn. And that will be hosted by and run by inclusive employers who will be talking to us about intersectionality, awareness and impact. So look forward to seeing you on the 9th of January. A massive thank you again to everybody that's taken part today. Jack and Maria, that was, again, really powerful and looking forward to kind of what's to come. And also a big thank you to all of you that have joined the Lunch and Learns over 2023 and look forward to seeing you next year in 2024. Take care, everybody. Thank you.